many familiar faces on the call with us. And it's wonderful to see so many of you coming back for this webinar series. This is the third in our Flourishing student webinar series, but also wonderful to see some new faces who are joining us for this webinar as well. As the webinar series has progressed, as I say, this is the third. The Jubilee Centre did the first webinar, Wake Forest did the second, and this is the third in the series. And each time the registrations have grown for this series, so it's great to see a growing interest in the work that's been done, and we've had enough interest in this that we will definitely be looking to run a second series, I think, next year, with different universities telling us what they are what they're doing in this area as well. But it's my pleasure to be introducing Cristy and Danielle from Arizona State University. Arizona State University is one of the first universities these days that anyone looks at when they're trying to look for innovation in higher education, not just in character education, but in all sorts of areas, you know, in terms of what they're doing, in terms of kind of virtual reality, digital technology, etc., etc. They're a university that I know my Vice Chancellor here, but also universities around the world states as the university to look at for innovation. But what's fantastic about the way that the university has been set up is that all they're in their innovation, it's not just innovation for innovation's sake, it's principled innovation. It's innovation that has a set of values ascribed to it, a set of kind of character expectations in terms of the people conducting and carrying out the innovation that underpins all of that work. And so we're absolutely delighted, as I say, that we've got Cristy and Danielle, who very much at the heart and centre of leading that work at Arizona State University, to come and tell us about their approach to principled innovation at Arizona State University. So I'm going to hand over to Cristy and Danielle now. And just to say, please, like in the other webinar series, please do feel free to add comments or indeed questions to our speakers in the chat, and then we'll make sure that they are picked up at the end and we ask them to Cristy and Danielle, and we will store those questions and also respond to them afterwards as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Cristy and Danielle, who will take us through their presentation this afternoon. So thank you very much indeed again.
Thanks so much, Tom, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. We're really excited to be here with you today. Feel honored to have been asked to share about this work that we've been doing over the last several years at ASU. So my name's Cristy Guleserian. I am with our Principled Innovation team here at Arizona State University, centered in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College. And I'll pass it over to Dan to introduce himself.
And good morning, good day, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Just really honored to be with you all as well. My name is Dan Gruber. I'm the Associate Dean for Teaching and Learning here at the W.P. Carey School of Business at ASU. And I'm also a clinical professor of management and entrepreneurship, and serving as a college catalyst for principled innovation. So really honored to be here and collaborate closely with Cristy and the team, and look forward to sharing a lot of the work that we're doing collaboratively. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So just to give you some context of where we are in the world. So we're here in the United States, in Phoenix, Arizona. Our campus that I think both Dan and I are on right now is in Tempe, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. And yeah, we're really, really excited to share with you about the work that we've been doing over the last several years, and the contextual nature of that, being in a public university or in this particular place in Phoenix, and a public university that's incredibly large and global, and has all of the complexities that go along with that when we talk about something like character and character development. So we will get started here. We're hoping to do just a lot of conversation towards the end of this, but we're going to do just a quick overview of what principled innovation is. It's our way, our shared language of talking about character and decision-making and innovation. We'll talk about a little bit of the history of principled innovation, how it originated at the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, and is now being scaled across the university at Arizona State. We'll discuss a little bit about how it's being implemented and some of the challenges and opportunities for growth that we're experiencing right now with this work. It's definitely not an easy process, so we'll talk a little bit about the messiness of it as well. So I'll begin with the history and evolution, the story of principled innovation and the framework. As I mentioned, it was originated in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College through a generous gift from the Kern Family Foundation back in 2017. This work really was prompted by three imperatives when we started talking about these challenges that we were seeing in the systems of education: an equity challenge, a democratic challenge, economic challenges. And that really opened up conversations around, like, how do we address these big challenges that we're seeing in these imperatives that we see as necessary to address in education. And the conversation turned to the role of character development in the systems of teacher and leader preparation, which, over the years, that conversation evolved into a framework. I would say a framework for decision-making as it applies to large and small-scale change initiatives and to the way that we innovate here in our College of Education and also at ASU as a whole. The framework for principled innovation was co-created with our College of Education, our faculty, our staff, our students, community partners over the course of several years. And it's really meant to be a guide that includes suggested active and reflective practices that really nurture the demonstration and the development of character in the experiential process of innovation and in systems change. It really recognizes the value of multiple perspectives, and that understanding the culture and the context of the communities that we serve is really core and essential to any changes that we make in education or anywhere within our society. The first 2 years of our work were really spent in a collaborative and iterative process to develop a framework that, like character itself, is contextual and is something our faculty, our staff, our students, and our district partners could really connect with. As we began that process of developing a shared language to guide our work, we really recognized the need to better understand our learning community and the values that we held, both as individuals within our community and also collectively as a community as a whole. So developing relationships was absolutely essential as we embarked on this work. We really had to get to know the people in our MLFTC community and the communities that we were serving, those districts we were serving, the students and the educators that we were serving, so that we could better understand their values and to identify our common values. We did this through creating very intentional opportunities for us to learn together and to engage in conversation and dialogue about values and virtue and character and how we identify and acknowledge our values as individuals and as a community. And this whole process of nurturing and developing the relationships, which really, I can't emphasize that enough, how core that was to this whole process. But nurturing, developing those relationships and really understanding of each other took a lot of very intentional effort and time and trust. And we had to engage in a lot of difficult conversations that required what we refer to as character assets. But it required things like empathy and honesty and very intentional listening and humility. And, we found that it was really helpful to start these conversations from examining existing frameworks and different approaches to character development. And you can go back to the other slide. Sorry, I'm taking a little more time here. The yellow one. So we really examined existing frameworks and languages that were used in various environments around character and character development. We actually started with the Jubilee framework. So the two webinars that preceded us, University of Birmingham and Wake Forest, both of the work that was being done at those universities was very essential to us as we were getting started and learning about different approaches to character education, character development, virtue development. So we started with that Jubilee Center framework for character education, and we asked our faculty and our staff and our students, what really resonates with you about this framework? What do you appreciate about it? What would you want to preserve? What would we need to let go of? What was missing that we might need to add? And these conversations revealed a lot to us. And as you can see on the slide, we've had, these numbers are actually increased now, but we've had so many different conversations, both individual and group opportunities, all faculty meetings, all staff meetings, where we really tried to listen to what our community was sharing with us. And some of the things that those conversations revealed were that the virtue language for a public university and a public college of education in our context, it kind of provoked some strong objection and resistance. And that really helped us to recognize that we needed a shared language that felt like a fit for our learning community. So in our framework, we refer to the virtues as character assets that felt like a fit for our faculty and our staff. They really felt we needed to come from an asset-based perspective. And so we heard that also that this couldn't be a top-down initiative, that it rather needed to come from the shared space and be woven naturally into the fabric of the culture of our college, really becoming the way we approach everything that we do. Faculty and staff felt that it was important to come, as I mentioned, from an asset-based perspective. And so the language in our framework really reflects that, that need from our community. And they wanted to situate both individual character, but within social context. So the work that we have done and the way that our framework has been cultivated is really about how individuals are centered within a social context, and the character is developing through experience, through context, and also through self-reflection as well. And we wanted to tie character to both the individual, the organizational, and social purpose. So what was really the purpose of doing this work, and how are we both developing character but demonstrating it in the way that we're operating at our college? And so I'm going through the story kind of through the lens of the practices that we've identified in our framework. And so you'll see on this slide, utilizing moral and ethical decision-making. This is one of our practices. So we allowed, through this process, ourselves the time to really be intentional so that we could pause and consider the full range of the moral and ethical implications of our decisions and our actions. We would, through this process, gather information from our faculty, our staff, through all of those conversations we were having, and then we would write a draft of definitions and then share them back to our community to ensure that we were aligning with the shared values that were emerging through the conversations and through these learning experiences we were engaging in together. And we spent quite a bit of time reflecting with our steering committee, which in the early years, our steering committee included a few engaged faculty. We had engaged with a lot of experts in the field of character education, moral development, and other areas connected to this type of work. But that steering committee eventually evolved into representatives from various units and programs across our college so that we could ensure that we were getting the voices from everyone who would be implementing this framework across the work that we were doing. The early days in this work really included discussions about specific words and the possible intended and unintended consequences of language. I remember times where we would be, ping-ponging back and forth across a room about one specific word for like half an hour. And, those were some of the things that felt difficult at the time, but we know that it was very necessary to have these conversations to land at a place that the community felt comfortable with the language that we were using. We often talked about our lived experiences and how they formed who we are, or the various intellectual or ideological frameworks that formed our beliefs and those of our community. And this open and very reflective process that we went through helped to ensure that the decisions that we were making about language and about definitions and guiding principles would really capture the essence of our faculty and our staff and our students and the communities that we were serving. And if we made the decision to exclude a suggestion or to go in a different direction, we were very intentional about discussing the possible intended and unintended consequences of those decisions. And that, at this time, we had to really draw on our own moral assets to engage in honest and compassionate communication about why and how decisions were being made, and really connecting them back to the emerging values of the community. And so being transparent about those decisions so that our community felt like their voices were really being honored and heard was essential for us at that time as well, and continuing. So next slide, please. Part of the process was really exploring and understanding the history of the college and the experiences of our longtime faculty and staff who had lived through various celebrations or challenges over the years, or who had seen grant initiatives come and go over the years. So that was one of the challenges in the early days was, well, this is a grant, it'll run its course, and then we'll move on to another grant or doing something else. And we really wanted to make sure what we were doing was going to be sustainable and something that really left a mark on the college. And so we had to really listen and have conversations with those that felt like that might be something that was a challenge for them. Perspective taking and empathy were essential as we listened to people share actually very passionately about their lived experiences with character education in the K-12 systems and how our current systems in higher ed might actually pose their own challenges to nurturing a culture that allowed the space to think creatively and to act morally, and to really center the well-being of students, communities, and our own faculty and staff as well. So every conversation, every learning experience, every failure, every success really helped us to gain a deeper understanding of the culture and the context in which we were operating in, and the systems that would either support or become barriers to creating the kinds of conditions and the capacities for character development in the process of innovation to occur. Next slide, please. So while it probably would have been easier to only engage with those who were of like mind or who were really on board with the initiative from the beginning, we knew that that would not serve the college and the community well, and that it definitely would not lead to sustainable or equitable change. And so we had to actively seek out and engage those voices and perspectives that were divergent in their thoughts and experiences. We found that really being reflective and intentional about our own responses to different perspectives was essential to cultivate the kind of open-mindedness to truly hear others and what they were sharing with us, especially when their viewpoints might have conflicted with our own. And so that really required us to get honest with ourselves about whether or not we were creating an environment for these kinds of conversations to actually happen, an environment that was inclusive and safe for people to share their ideas and their thoughts and their wonders and their skepticism, the types of perspectives and feelings that were coming up for them around this work. And so each of us that were involved in kind of leading this work from the beginning, as individuals and also as a collective, we really had to examine our own biases and become comfortable with being uncomfortable when we discovered or uncovered something about ourselves in the process. So sometimes if our words or our dispositions or actions may have unintentionally harmed others, we had to get honest with ourselves about why and how to approach next steps with that. So how were we demonstrating character throughout this process? And we really had to think differently about how we were making decisions and supporting our students and interacting with each other, fostering civil dialogue with a spirit of altruism and really striving to nurture the environment that would be inclusive, where people felt and recognized that their voices were being heard and valued throughout this process. We had to ask ourselves tough questions. Next slide, please. Thanks. We had to ask ourselves the kind of tough questions about how we had always done things at the college and what we might be able to do differently. We read a lot of articles, talked with experts, as I mentioned, in the field of character education, moral development, education, philosophy, psychology, a whole bunch of related fields of study. And as we were gathering that information, we started to map the different systems within our college, looking at various theories and approaches to character development and innovation and education, thinking about leadership and what that meant in this whole process, and really began to develop this framework and a theory of change for how it would be applied within our college. Let's see here. Next slide, please. So this led to many iterations of the different definitions within the framework, other components of our framework that were informed by both critical and compassionate reflection on our experiences as we were going through this process. With every iteration, we would evolve based on the feedback from our community and the outcomes of our reflections. Sometimes the greatest learning experiences that we had throughout all of this work were prompted by the significant failures we may have had that really pushed us to pause and reevaluate our approach and our own perspectives. Those failures sometimes were just our greatest learning experiences. Next slide, please. Thanks. So, and as you can tell, the story really is about the process, which I think the process actually became the product, if you want to look at it that way. The process we went through truly became the framework. And so throughout the time of developing the framework and as we moved into implementation, we were really striving to keep that human experience at the forefront of our work. And in our experience, relationships, as I mentioned, always had been the key to any successful collaboration. And those moral, civic, intellectual, performance dispositions that help us to nurture those relationships have become the heart of our framework for principled innovation. When we lean into the character assets that we each possess and remain honest with ourselves and others about the collective needs of the community that we're serving, what we're bringing into the creative collaboration, how we're receiving what others are sharing, and how we respond to the outcomes, we can start to tap solutions that we might not have considered when designing within silos. So as we started engaging in systems change in the college with this framework at the heart of what we were doing, it really helped us to think differently about how we were serving our community, how we were serving students, how we had always been doing things, and how we might think about doing things differently to really nurture the flourishing of our students. So we learned early on that implementing a sustainable focus on character in our context, that it just couldn't be done through adding a new program or having a specific initiative, that it couldn't be something that we just did. It actually had to be the way that we approached everything that we do. And it's really in the demonstration of our character assets and our practices and the way that we innovate and the conditions that we're creating for individuals in our communities to nurture these capacities that really matters. And so, as I mentioned, next slide, please, that this wasn't easy work at all. It was messy and uncertain and often uncomfortable. We had to navigate uncertainty every step of the way and to really be open to an evolutionary approach that lends itself to new possibilities. And remaining open-minded and honest with ourselves and with each other throughout the process, and honoring the process with the time and the space to be reflective. That's been key to a cultural shift that we started to see within our College of Education. And principled innovation has really become more of an approach to decision-making in everything that we do. So it's within the framework, a set of assets. We have our 4 domains, which I'll talk about in a moment, but a set of assets and practices that we really nurture as we engage in innovative decision-making, whether it's in the context of large-scale systems change here at our college or in education as a whole, or in the everyday decisions that we might be making that have the potential to affect the lives and learning of others. And so, next slide, please. Thanks, Dan. From this very intentional process evolved our framework for principled innovation, which we define as the ability to imagine new concepts, catalyze ideas, and form new solutions guided by principles that create positive change for humanity. This really captures the essence of what we're called to do at ASU, which is innovate for the well-being of our communities, and recognizes the principles of our character assets, virtues, and dispositions that are at the heart of our decision-making. So when we say humanity, that sometimes can feel really big and overwhelming, and sometimes it helps for us to think of humanity as the individual humans who might be struggling or suffering in any given moment, in any given situation. And sometimes those individuals are our students, sometimes they're our colleagues, sometimes it's ourselves. And so PI, principled innovation, really helps us to become aware of the needs of others as well as our own needs, and provides an approach to address these needs in a very thoughtful, intentional, equitable, and human-centered way. And a question, next slide, please. A question that we ask ourselves that has really guided much of the work that we do is, just because we can, should we? And this really places values and ethical understandings in our own character at the core of any innovative idea or decision or solution that we pursue. And as I mentioned, our framework recognizes these 4 domains of character. You'll see a lot of, next slide, please. If you take a look at the framework, you'll see a lot of other frameworks. The Jubilee influence on this as well, and the work at Wake Forest is an influence on this as well. But it really has these 4 domains of characters, and we've identified 8 practices of principled innovation that are demonstrations of these assets in action. And that's what I just ran through with the whole story, how those practices really can be applied in a change process, an innovative process, decision-making process. And those practices really emerged through the process of developing the framework and form our approach to principled innovation. And so, at MLFTC, we collectively identified the specific assets within these domains that were important to our community and that we felt were necessary to practice principled innovation. And some of these assets that we specifically focus on are things like honesty and humility, and empathy and fairness and civility. We have assets that are aligned, and we'll share a link to our website that has all of this information in there. And, really looking at this practice of principled innovation through intentional reflection on our values and beliefs and relationships and experiences, we can develop these character assets through an experiential process, as well as a sense of practical wisdom that guides us in the situations where there might be no clear right answer or action. And so by practicing principled innovation in our decisions and our actions, whether, again, large-scale systems change or those daily decisions we might be making, we can be intentional about how we're creating conditions for humans and communities to flourish. Next slide, please. I'll skip through this one pretty quickly here, but this is just an ecological model that we use to show where our character assets are actually developing within these environments that we're operating in, where we're innovating, where we're engaging with others. And so once we landed at our framework, we recognized this need to have tools and resources that really support our learning community in the understanding and practice of principled innovation. Next slide, please. And so we have an online toolkit that we created, which we'll share out with everyone. And these are tools that we can use as we're developing our own individual practice of principled innovation and cultivating knowledge of principled innovation and of character. And these tools have been used by our faculty and our staff and our students to engage in systems change and in areas like curriculum redesign, student services, organizational culture, professional development, any sort of systems redesign and continued improvement, we're able to use these tools to help navigate those processes. We have a set of card decks, which we can share with others, and an online app that you can use to access those questions that help us to engage character in everything that we do. Okay, I've talked way more than I probably should have. And so I'm going to can toss it over to Dan, who saw some of this work happening in process when we were in the early years at the College of Education. So Dan, do you want to share a little bit about your experience and first introduction to PI and initial thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much, Cristy. And I think that it's an honor to present alongside you. This is my 5th year serving as Associate Dean for Teaching and Learning here at the W.P. Carey School of Business at ASU. And as I started, I had a chance to learn about principled innovation and some of the work that was happening throughout different iterations of this work, and to see the way that it has advanced over the last several years, and especially over the last couple of years across the university, has been quite inspiring. And so as I kind of share a little bit here about advancing PI across ASU, we'll talk through a little bit of our ASU charter. Our ASU charter is what guides everything that we do. Our president, Michael Crow, worked collaboratively to introduce this charter over 20 years ago as he was coming to the presidency of ASU in 2002. And I think it's really important to work through this because it really illuminates so much of the work that we do, what draws many of us to the university, and what we think about every single day. We're a comprehensive public research university. We're measured not by whom we exclude, but whom we include and how they succeed. Advancing research and discovery of public value and assuming fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the communities it serves. And I think that, there's so many elements, in each word that you see in the charter is something that was worked through staff, faculty, partners across students to really think through what this means and how we can really be inclusive, how we can have an impact, how we can think about the research that's done. In order to work towards this charter, there are the design aspirations that we have at ASU. And as President Crow remarks here, design aspirations are those things that we're attempting to achieve through the design of the institution that aid our ability to accomplish the ultimate goals of the charter. So these design aspirations are omnipresent throughout the university, and those of us in leadership roles are thinking about the ways in which they are impacting everything we do, from leveraging our place and thinking about ways that we transform society, valuing entrepreneurship, use-inspired research, student success, intellectual disciplines, socially embedded, engaging globally. So you can think about these initial design aspirations as ways in which President Crow and our community at ASU wanted to articulate the types of things that he thought were essential for this new American university. What are the things that we can do every day and ways that we can aspire in the design of our work to really think about the uniqueness of what we can accomplish together? I think that the exciting thing for those of us who have been here for several years and who have seen this evolution of practice principled innovation, as Cristy eloquently shared the story of how this came from the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, was over the last couple of years, we've had a chance to really understand what this can mean for the entirety of the university. So there were many of us across the university that were seeing what was happening at the Teachers College and connecting into it in different ways, being invited to various opportunities to learn, to see the ways that not only was the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College under the leadership of Carol Basile, their dean, thinking about the ways in which faculty, staff, and students, but also stakeholders and partners. And I think that manifested itself in the opportunity to bring in a new design aspiration, practice principled innovation. And practice principled innovation, as you can see here, ASU places character and values at the center of decisions and actions. And I think we're very proud of our reputation for being #1 in innovation. but the idea of articulating practice-principled innovation as an ASU design aspiration is something that really kind of takes the opportunities that we have and our uniqueness with the charter and these existing design aspirations that President Crow decided to really introduce this new opportunity. Cristy?
Great, thanks, Dan. So as Dan mentioned, we are now advancing this work across the university, which in some ways kind of puts us right back at the beginning of the work that we, similar to what we did at MLFTC. So, the slide really shows like stage one was the work that we did at MLFTC. Now, how do we start to think about this in various contexts across the university? We are now taking a framework that was developed for a specific context and sharing it with others who are now going through that similar process to contextualize it for the business school, for art and design, for the School of Public Policy, and many others across the college. So phase two is really thinking about how this work can be done in multiple colleges and different units across the university, and then also beyond ASU as well. And so the landscape of this work as we advance principled innovation, next slide, please, is to bring principled innovation into these different areas of the university. So as Dan mentioned, we have the college catalysts over the next 5 years. We'll be working with 10 colleges across the university. We have our first cohort, which includes the business school and School of Public Policy and art and design. And we're doing this work through bringing together what we refer to as catalysts to engage in communities of practice. We also have some K-12 initiatives that are being addressed through student services, extended outreach to the K-12 area and through our ASU Prep Digital, and that's a K-12 school associated with ASU. We're also integrating this into our VR experiences through our Dreamscape Learn, initiatives within the provost office and student initiatives, and also in our University Design Institute, which works with other universities to redesign the way they're delivering services as well. So next slide, please. And we are doing this, a key core part of what we do is all through communities of practice. And so this has been something that we've used very intentionally at MLFT, or at the Teachers College, and has really evolved as the vehicle for cultivating knowledge and practice of principled innovation. We're in the midst right now of a project that's funded by the John Templeton Foundation to evaluate this approach of using a community of practice as a way to engage in shared learning and character development with others that have a shared purpose. And this is also an approach that we're using with the work that we're scaling across the university. So we have catalysts who engage in these communities of practice from the colleges that will be working intentionally to integrate principled innovation, as well as several program managers that are across the university in various units that also participate in this. And, at ASU, we define a community of practice as a self-directed, committed team with a shared purpose. And our shared purpose here is to catalyze principled innovation across various contexts, and to really, continue to learn together and grow together in this work, and make connections across the university as well. So it helps us to kind of break out of those silos and to think reflectively, creatively, morally, ethically, to bring about change for social good. And then through these communities of practice, we are using the 7 strategies for character development in the way that we come together and when we're together within those communities of practice. So this has been very key to the work that we do in the way that we direct those communities of practice or lead them collaboratively together. And so, Dan, do you want to take on a little bit about your experience or talk a little bit about your experience as a catalyst? And
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Cristy. And it's really exciting to be serving in this capacity as a college catalyst. My fellow catalyst from WP Carey, from the WP Carey School of Business, is Jared Byrne, who leads our Center for Entrepreneurship. He's visiting companies right now. Otherwise, he'd be excited and delighted to join us as well. But what has been really exciting to be a part of this group is not only to bring the work to the WP Carey School of Business, and we'll talk a little bit about some of that work, but also to be a part of the different communities and the College Catalyst cohort, the first cohort. As Cristy alluded to, having colleagues from education, from design and the arts, from public service and community solutions, and thinking about the Herberger School, the Watt School, Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, and of course, being here at the WP Carey School of Business allows for a lot of interdisciplinary conversation. It allows for a lot of interdisciplinary collaboration and really learning together, being with other leaders across the university, thinking about the various challenges and opportunities that they see, as well as for us to be able to come together and envision and try out ideas. I think the way that Cristy and her team have led this group have allowed us to really build these meaningful relationships. They've allowed us to be encouraged to try new things, and also to better understand our own campus and our own community. And so I feel very honored to serve in this first set of college catalysts. Here at the WP Carey School of Business, it's really been a very exciting process, and it's a journey. Cristy, I was looking back at some of the initial emails, and about a year ago, we started to get the catalyst in motion. It feels like multiple years, and I think for many of you all here on the Zoom and the webinar, and just see some smiley faces when we think about just everything that many of us in leadership roles have been navigating over the last several years. A year often feels like 2 or 3. But it's been very exciting. One of the things last spring that our Dean Ohad Kadan, who's led a really exciting strategic planning process over the last few years here at WP Carey, really focusing us around the ways in we think about excellence, access, and innovation and business knowledge, and how we really transform the world through that here at WP Carey, where business is personal, is being able to present in the Dean's Town Hall. And so we had about 100 or so of our colleagues, faculty and staff joining us so we could talk about this work, understanding the combination of what Cristy and the team have been bringing at Mary Lou Fulton, and how President Crow has envisioned this opportunity for us to take this as a design aspiration and then bring it into our college. Thinking about the ways in which so many of the different things that we do in the College of Business embrace principled innovation, have it as part of what we're doing. How do we take things to another layer and level of excellence and access and innovation through principled innovation? I serve on a lot of different committees, and I know that many of you all do as well, and many leadership teams and various meetings. So how do I bring principled innovation not only into the ways that I run some of those meetings and think about those teams, but also introducing some of these different practices, bringing the card decks that Cristy referred to different initiatives, to the teaching workshops that I lead, to some of the sessions that we've been having over the last year around the impact of generative AI on teaching and learning, called Coffee, Tea, and Chat GPT, and bringing some of the card decks to those sessions as well, so that our colleagues are thinking about what principled innovation means to them. So as you can see, we're really trying to set the stage to create a plan and then really to prioritize. One of the great opportunities that Jared and I had recently was to be able to share an article and publish an article about this work in the AACSB, which is our accreditation body for business schools, and their website on AACSB Insights, to talk about the ways in which we're thinking about principled innovation at the WP Carey School of Business. And so this is an article that we can share the link to with you all as well, but it allowed us to kind of share with other business schools the ways in which partnering across the university, how important it is for the business school to really think about that partnership, and with Cristy and her team and the other college catalysts to be part of these interdisciplinary conversations as it relates to principled innovation. One of the things that Jared has been doing for a number of years is a new venture challenge. And so he's working to bring this competition to another layer and level of excellence by embedding principled innovation into the new venture challenge, into the ways in which students are evaluated, into the ways in which these new ideas, the entrepreneurs are understanding what principled innovation means and the ways in which they can think about it for their organizations that they're developing. In just a couple of weeks, we'll be hosting a case study competition here at the W.P. Carey School of Business. I'm really excited and delighted to welcome students from Northern Arizona University and from the University of Arizona, their business schools. They'll be coming here to practice principled innovation. And the way that we envisioned this new competition was thinking about principled innovation as a design aspiration. So rather than having the 3 business schools send teams here and compete against each other, these students are going to be working together, where we pair students from each of the 3 schools on a team so they can really understand the statewide business challenges that they're going to have an opportunity to solve. We're partnering with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, GPEC, on a case study that really encourages them to not only work together, but also to think about the implications of the decisions and the ideas that they're coming up with through the principled innovation lens. And so the students from other schools will be having this opportunity to learn about principled innovation. In addition, we'll have various judges that will include executives and other partners of the school here. So we're able to share what principled innovation means to them as well. So that is coming up in just a couple of weeks. We have faculty who have opportunity to apply for seed grants. I lead a research on teaching and learning grant project, and that's an opportunity to really think about principled innovation in that space. We also have other opportunities to advance this work. It's been very interesting as a catalyst. Everything that I'm doing, I'm thinking about ways that I can bring practice principled innovation to it. For example, I'm one of our co-chairs for the ASU United Way campaign within the W.P. Carey School of Business. This is a university-wide initiative that's really been focused on thinking about the ways that we model our opportunities through the charter to think about the communities that we serve and the people that live in those communities, the United Way being an organization that the university supports across the board. One of our faculty here at the W.P. Carey School of Business teaches a class around building effective teams, and he wanted to think about a way to create an opportunity for that group of students to really partner with our United Way campaign to create volunteer opportunities. And so we had a volunteer day here on campus that allowed for our faculty and staff to be able to volunteer to build packs for food and for literacy for our communities through the United Way campaign. This became an opportunity to share with those students, to share with the committee internally what principled innovation means and how they can be modeling principled innovation, not only in the work that we were doing there, but also in future iterations of this work. So thinking about the ways that this all comes together. Cristy mentioned earlier that one of the areas in which this work is expanding is into our virtual reality work with the Dreamscape Learn initiative. I have the honor to serve as a champion for our W.P. Carey School of Business for the AR and VR strategic initiative. I mentioned our strategic plan and where we've evolved with that under our Dean Ohad Kadan. So thinking about ways in which the VR work connects to the principled innovation. Later this morning, I'll be heading over to the community of practice over at Dreamscape Learn. So thinking about the ways in which all of this comes together. And there are many exciting ways that this is happening. I just mentioned a couple, but as we look forward, we also have an amazing center for data analytics and AI, and thinking about the work that's being done by my colleague Pei Shen and her teams of faculty and the ways in which they're thinking about a concept of mindful AI and what that means for practice principled innovation. So there's so many things that are happening across the school here. And I think my job as a college catalyst is to highlight those, to encourage those, to support those, and also to honor a lot of the challenges that we see around bringing this to the scale at which we operate. We have over 20,000 students here at the W.P. Carey School of Business. So our business school is operating at a scale of many universities. And so how do I create that awareness for faculty colleagues, for staff colleagues, for our students? This is an iteration that's going to continue for several years. As I mentioned, we're in the first year of finishing up this college catalyst work. We're really excited about the momentum that we're building, but we recognize when we see what Cristy shares over several year period, that this really is a journey as a college catalyst and as a partner across the community, and started to get into some of the challenges and opportunities. But Cristy, we can kind of work through a couple of these and then open it up to some questions, or however you'd like to proceed from here.
Yeah, maybe we can just open it up for questions. We have about 10 minutes left, and I'm sure some of these opportunities that we found through the challenges we've experienced might come out in the questions that we get as well.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much indeed, Cristy and Danielle. And I can we'll be able to share the slides, and also this webinar has been recorded, so we can share this on as well. But I mean, what more could you want in a packed presentation than kind of deep theoretical thinking behind this, but then also some wonderful practical examples of what this actually looks like in practice. And you can see on this slide, recognizing some of the challenges and opportunities within there as well. But we have had a few questions coming through, and I really wanted to make sure we left time to just at least honor some of those, and then we can send the rest of you to follow up on afterwards. The first question, I'll go on these in order, but some of them actually have similar focus, so I may bring them together. But the first question came through straight away from Kabrina, was about change. This is an area that we hear about all the time, is about and changing cultures around this, and whether there's any particular resistance around that, and also what you might do to kind of encounter resistance in that place. I think from what I hear, it's actually built into the principles of trying to take people with you within here, but we'd love to hear with you about, any resistance and how you may have countered that.
Sure. Yes. I mean, we're talking about higher ed and faculty and staff who work in higher ed who are trained to be skeptical. And so there was resistance right from the beginning. A lot of people, their ears perked up: whose values, whose morals, whose virtues. Like, these were some of the big questions that people were asking. And there were other points of resistance as well, especially when we started looking at things like the way character education had been traditionally practiced or received in the K-12 space, and questions about that, questions about tensions between research interests and the field of work around character. And so the way that we addressed these things was really through using the practices of principled innovation, recognizing that we had to open up the space for listening and having conversations, and really understanding the perspectives of others, and giving people time and space to grapple with the ideas and with their own questions that they had. Being open-minded to really listening to what people were sharing. And I think this is where that key of, looking at our own character and being self-reflective as those who were engaging in this work. And I think that's like an individual responsibility that we all have, so that we're preparing ourselves to engage in that civil dialogue around differences or conflicts we may be experiencing, or challenges that people are experiencing in the work. And so I think just meeting people where they are, developing those relationships, being open to having conversations about the work with all people and through all perspectives, and continually, inviting people to contribute to the work. I think the collaborative nature of developing the framework and co-creating it together was really key in this process for us. Dan, do you have thoughts on that question as well?
Just quickly, in the spirit of wanting to get to additional questions, two things that jump out to me. One is that, it's this combination of our president bringing this as a design aspiration, really kind of calls to action the opportunities here. And then the second is just taking the small wins, taking the steps, looking for opportunities to see existing spaces and places to bring principled innovation. I think it's been really a nice way to honor those challenges and to kind of navigate some of that complexity.
Yeah, I think to build off of that, the identifying where it's already being done, recognizing up front, like, we know you're already doing this, but help us identify where it is and to tell the stories of what it is that you're doing. Storytelling has been a huge part of our work as well.
That's great, thank you. And I think you've actually started to answer the question that came through from a couple of people. Shadi, I hope I've got your name right, and Jennifer, who talked about this increased sense of polarization, particularly across universities in America and maybe America more widely. But I think that's not just where you are. We experience this a lot in Europe, and I know other parts of the world as well. And whether at some point, I suppose, it's the case of having principal innovation to look at what's right values and approach this. But at some point, I suppose the institution needs to stand up and say these are the sorts of values that we prioritize highly within this place. And I suppose embedded in their question is, have you met any resistance in there, and do you think that is inclusive enough when you actually come to that point and saying, right, this is how we're progressing?
Mm-hmm. So I would say that recognizing that we had defined what those common values were, but also having the ability to have the conversations about the value that each person is bringing to this work. And I think, again, this goes to the way we engage in conversation about conflict or about difference in values and beliefs and opinions, that, it's the way we engage. So are we ever going to have complete consensus? No, but how do we engage in the conversations about the differences that we might have and identify what those common values are?
And I think a quick compliment to that is just, thinking about the ASU charter as a guiding light and a way of, those of us who are here are really thinking about that every day and these design aspirations. So it's a shared sense of what we're here for and what we're aiming to do. But yes, there are challenges and there are tensions. And I think that one of the things that Cristy and her team have modeled, I think, incredibly well for the Catalyst and the others around this work is a space and holding the space for those very challenging and difficult conversations. And I think that's something that they've modeled, as we heard again on their great journey, but also they're modeling with those of us as college catalysts and others.
Thanks. Right, I think we've got time for one last quick question, although none of these questions quickly. And I'm just going to pick the one from Molly so we can hear from voices from other parts of the world. And I mean, Molly's asking for collaboration in Africa, and we're delighted to hear from people building this work in different parts of the world as well. But Molly's question is, do you think there's anything that you've learned in your kind of higher education experience that might also be applied to K-12 or kind of schooling experience?
Yeah, I think that there's actually a lot of alignment between the experience we've had here and in K-12. And I actually came from the K-12 space to begin this work. And so I think it's the cultural aspect of it that that we're learning is really essential. So are we creating the conditions for this kind of work to happen? And what do we need to do as an organization to ensure that people feel like they have that psychological safety to engage in these types of initiatives and in this type of work, and to have these kinds of conversations, and to be able to, share authentically and transparently about what they believe and how we're doing the work together. And and the relationship piece as well. I think, if we focus on the relational aspect of this work, everything else becomes a little bit easier. It opens up those opportunities to have these types of conversations with each other and make these kinds of innovations and systems.
And just to quickly complement that full circle moment for me, we're getting ready this weekend and over the next few weekends to host an event that's really inspiring here at ASU called ASU Open Door. It's an event where we invite the public to join us across our 4 campuses here in Arizona. And what is really exciting about that for me is one of the leadership roles that I've done at WP Carey is coordinated and collaborated with a committee to reimagine what the Open Door for the WP Carey School of Business can be for Open Door. We've created a fun opportunity called Launching Lemonade, where kids come through the opportunity and they get a chance to launch their own lemonade stand. This is a little lemon squeeze ball. I didn't have this in any sort of intentionality here, other than to say that teaching students about entrepreneurship and, K through 12, as they're kind of thinking about their ideas around these, they get a chance to come up with a idea for a lemonade stand. They get a chance to talk to business professors and staff around their ideas. And and then take a photo to kind of commemorate that. Open Door allows students to kind of see all of our university. It's almost like a children's museum that's outside here in Arizona across 4 campuses. It's amazing to see the energy and the delight and the excitement. But, as we kind of thought about launching Lemonade and the ideas in which we were bringing last year, principled innovation was really infused into that thinking. This year, as we get into, this Saturday, 2 days from now, at our West Valley campus, and then we'll be heading, to the Polytechnic campus and eventually here to Tempe, we have the principled innovation cards that Cristy was alluding to give to the K through 5 students and the 6 through 12 students, so they can have an opportunity to think about practice principled innovation. So it's a complement to what Cristy's mentioning with the work that they do in the Teachers College, really thinking about that with the staff, the principals, the teachers in that space. And for us, as we're connecting with future business students, how can we get them to start thinking about practicing principled innovation as they're launching their lemonade stand? So it's an exciting ASU Open Door, and just a way of saying how this journey evolves every iteration, and both in the design and the work that we're doing and the ways that it builds year after year, semester after semester, day after day. So thanks so much, Tom, for the opportunity to share with Cristy.
Brilliant. And thank you so much to both of you. I mean, I'm kind of blown away by the amount of stuff that you're doing over there. I'm amazed you found time to come and join us for this hour to come and give this presentation. And I know this will be watched by many people who registered for this in the recording afterwards. Just finally to say thank you again from me, Cristy and Danielle, for your excellent presentation. Thank you to everyone who's joined us live this afternoon. Fantastic numbers of people who come and spent time with us this afternoon. And please do join the future presentations. The next one's from the University of Oxford and the Oxford Character Project there. So hope you have a good rest of the day wherever you are, and look forward to seeing you on a webinar or in person some point soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.